webinar. My name is Aida Prados and I will be moderating this session. On behalf of Estudio de Comunicación, I would like to thank you all for joining us today. And of course, thank you to the sponsors who made this webinar possible, who are BNP Paribas, Exam BNP Paribas, Grant Thornton, Aon, Prisa, CK Bank, Linklaters, BME, Equipo Económico, ICO, and ICEX. Before I introduce today's speaker, I would like to remind you that all participating investors can type in questions on our chat feature, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. You may also send your questions via email to the email address provided in the webinar invitation. We will be running a live Q&A chat at the end of the speaker's intervention in which she will answer your questions. So without any further ado, I am pleased to introduce today's speaker, Ms. Xiana Méndez, who is Spain's Secretary of State for Trade. Ms. Méndez will present the government's plans and measures to reactivate the economy as Spanish businesses navigate the new post-COVID scenario or what has been labeled the new normality. Ms. Méndez, thank you very much for joining us today. The floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, Aida. Thank you for your warm welcome and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this webinar and having the opportunity to address again the investment community, the organizers of the Spain Investors Day, and the sponsors too. It is the first opportunity for me to do so since the event that was held in January this year, the Great Spain Investors Day. And since then, the global economic scenario has completely changed everywhere because of the COVID-19. So first of all, I would like to express my condolences to those who have lost relatives and friends due to the pandemic. And now I would like to talk about the measures undertaken by this government during this sanitary and this economic crisis. So for the last 3 to 4 months. As you know, COVID-19 is negatively affecting the global economy, and we are involved in an uncertainty scenario. According to the IMF forecast, the global GDP will fall by 4.9% this year, which is the highest drop of the global GDP since 1984, when the IMF started the statistic database. Being sincere, the fact is that the Spanish economy is more affected by the present crisis than other economic partners because we depend more on some very specific sectors that have been more affected or impacted by the pandemic, such as the tourism, transports, car industry, or trade. At the beginning of the year 2020, all national and international institutions forecasted that Spain would have continued with the same growth path that the latest 5 years. So the environment has drastically changed, including in Spain, from the middle of March. And now we have to face an economic contraction of an intensity not seen for the last 70 years. This diagnosis has led us to a forecast of a fall in GDP of more than 9% in 2020, which is in line with the estimates made by the main international organizations for the countries in our environment that have been most affected by the epidemic. Trade data are particularly significant. After the 10 consecutive years of growth in the exports in the period January to April 2020, Spanish exports of goods fell by 12.4% year-on-year to nearly 84,000 million euros. The most affected sectors were the automotive sector, also the energy products, and this fall was in line with that one registered by the countries most affected by the pandemic in March, such as Germany, France, the United Kingdom, the United States, or Japan. In contrast, other sectors, such as the food, beverage, and tobacco exports, increased 8.8% year-on-year. So at this moment, currently in this de-escalation phase, a timid change of trend is observed with a slight recovery in economic activity and also the employment. So the data that we have known about the evolution of the affiliation to the Social Security in the month of May point in this direction of recovery. Therefore, at this time, and with a lot of caution, of course, if the epidemic control is maintained, the changing trend is consolidated, and the world economy begins to recover, the Spanish economy, following an asymmetric V profile, will register a remarkable growth rate in 2021. The successive packages of economic measures adopted by the Spanish government since the beginning of the epidemic, since March, are contributing to this changing trend. A first line of measures approved by the government was aimed at containing the coronavirus pandemic from a health perspective. So in this area, one of the actions carried out by this Ministry of Industry, Trade and Tourism has been to help strengthen the capacities of the national health system with essential health equipment and goods. So the aim, the goal was to help to reorientate and accompany the Spanish industry in order to boost the national manufacture of large-scale health products with the aim of becoming self-sufficient and later even export, and therefore not dependent on third markets, but also with the aim of achieving a strategic reserve for the future. Secondly, and in addition to working to strengthen the capacities of the national health system and guarantee the proper functioning of the essential sectors, an area directly linked to the management of the health crisis was that an exogenous and temporary problem of liquidity became a problem of solvency after some weeks. So in the income of the economy, to preserve a solid base of our productive sector on which to build the recovery and the economic reactivation. The lines of action in this area, the area of liquidity and solvency, have mainly gone in three directions. The first one was ensuring business liquidity, business continuity with different instruments. Among these instruments, the line of public guarantees of up to 100 billion euros implemented through the Instituto de Crédito Oficial, the ICO, stands out, which, as you know, are being deployed in different tranches. And at present, the ICO has provided financing for more than 500,000 operations in Spain, which have received more than 65 billion euros in funding for liquidity. The tourism sector, which is one of the sectors most affected by the crisis, is also the main beneficiary, of course, of these lines of liquidity and has currently received more than 10 billion euros in funding, which represents 17% of the total line. The Ministry of Industry, Trade and Tourism has also put in place various support lines to strengthen the liquidity of companies. We have set a specific CERSA line for the self-employed and the SMEs that promotes credit through mutual guarantee societies. And in addition, CESCE has mobilized 2 billion euros to finance export companies and internationalized companies in general. At the moment, CESCE has financed 630 operations worth more than 1,000 million euros and continue to work through this liquidity line. With this same objective of providing liquidity to the productive system, a series of moratoria have also been approved. The best known are the tax moratoria and also the moratoria on social security payments. But I would also like to highlight the moratoria that have provided liquidity support for families and employers. More than 200,000 mortgage moratoria have been approved and more than 300,000 moratoria of other types of credits. A second group of economic policy measures have been aimed at supporting employment through an extraordinary mechanism to allow temporary employment regulation schemes, which we call the ERTES, with very significant public support and covering more than 3 million workers to more than 550,000 companies. This has been really a very successful measure. And the government has also deployed a third type of instrument aimed at supporting household incomes, with particular attention to the most vulnerable groups and also the self-employed, to whom the extraordinary benefit for cessation of activity or fall in income for the self-employed has been made available. This instrument has guaranteed a minimum income to more than 1 million self-employed people and continue to work. In addition to these immediate action measures, it is also essential to continue with the reform agenda being promoted by the government in order to continue to address the medium-term challenges facing our country, so the recovery and the solvency problems. Now more than ever, it is essential to reorient and modernize our productive system with the aim of addressing the ecological transition, promoting greater industrialization of our economy, encouraging digitalization, improving education and capacities and training. And they are the key, all these elements are the key, the factors for a more prosperous future for our young people. And so the government has a firm commitment to innovation, science, and providing a decisive response to the demographic challenge. The Ministry of Industry, Trade and Tourism, and in particular the Secretary of State for Trade, is working on plans aimed at strengthening the strategic sectors for our country most affected by the current health crisis. These plans make compatible a vocation of shock, of urgent action, aimed at mitigating the immediate effects of the pandemic on these sectors with a more strategic and long-term oriented policies. Firstly, the government has presented a plan to boost the automotive industry. The automotive sector, as you know, plays a strategic role in the Spanish economy with a tractor effect along the entire value chain from the manufacture of vehicle components and the capital goods to the electric vehicle, recharging infrastructure, vehicle manufacturing and logistics and components, of course. As you know, we have more than 1,000 component manufacturing companies and 17 manufacturing plants, all of them belonging to international and foreign multinationals, which means more than 650,000 direct workers and up to 2 million workers in indirect jobs. In addition, Spain is the second largest car manufacturer in Europe and the 8th worldwide. This plan will have short-term impact measures as they will be implemented and executed by the second semester, and medium-term strategic measures that will be promoted over the next few years. These measures are based on the following lines. The first one focuses on the renewal of vehicle fleet towards a more efficient one through demand, through the aids, financial aids for the demand. The second one is stimulating investment to boost the competitiveness and sustainability of the sector. The third is to promote research, development, and innovation. In order to face the new challenges in terms of digitalization and sustainability. The fourth is to promote taxation in order to boost the sector's competitiveness. The fifth establishes measures to guarantee liquidity. And finally, the sixth axis or line will focus on measures in the area of training and capacities and human capital. Another sector that we also have a specific support plan is tourism, also belonging to this ministry. A sector which, as you know, accounts for more than 12% of the Spanish GDP and more than 12% also of the Spanish employment. On the road to the new normality, recovering both national and international mobility is one of the great challenges, and we don't know exactly when we are going to recover. So in the recent years, it has been approved a plan in the recent days, I think 2 weeks ago, in fact, a plan to relaunch the tourism sector was launched and will be developed around the following pillars. Firstly, health safety. We have drawn safety protocols and health and hygiene guides for the various models of public transport and also for the hotels and restaurants. The common objective is shared. We need safety both at origin and also at destination, so we must ensure that tourists are not put in a risk or brought into our country. The positive data on the evolution of the pandemic indicate that the objective of opening Spain to international tourism from July the 1st is possible within a framework of health security. And as the Minister Maroto said yesterday, we haven't been affected from imported pandemic or imported infections for the last 2 weeks when we decided to open the borders. Secondly, a set of economic support measures for the sector have been deployed. And thirdly, we are also working on a tourism observatory because knowledge and information have become a necessity when it comes to dealing with the best tourism policies and the best practices. And the last element that is developed in the plan has to do with promotion. So on June the 16th, it has been activated a powerful national campaign so that tourists, in this case residents, so Spanish national tourism, choose and rediscover Spain. In the field of industry, a sector that is also key to the agenda of this government and the ministry, it is necessary to articulate a new industrial policy with a long-term vision to make up for lost time and aligned with the objectives of sustainability and the Agenda 2030. We are already working on a project law on industry to replace the current one, which, as you know, dates from 1992. And we must provide the industry with a legal framework that is appropriate for the current production and also for the next future challenges. And finally, in the area of foreign trade, the government was working in various international fora to strengthen the multilateral trading system and thereby also accelerate the economic recovery. During this legislature, the third action plan for the internationalization of the Spanish economy, 2021-2022, will also be approved with the aim of continuing to support the internationalization of the Spanish economy. But before that, in the coming weeks, we will release a short-term package of measures and some guidelines for the short-term and medium term to support our foreign trade sector. On this path to the reactivation of the economy, foreign companies established in Spain are going to play a fundamental role. Spain is the 11th largest recipient of foreign investment in the world, with a huge investment stock of over $550 billion. And according to the latest data available from the Foreign Invest Registry of the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Tourism, more than 16,000 foreign companies operate in our country, with an investment stock equivalent to more than 500 billion euros and employing more than 1,500,000 people. So among other measures adopted in the context of this COVID-19 outbreak, Spain modified the existing regime on foreign investments, suspending the liberalization of certain non-EU foreign direct investments in Spain. The affected FDIs will be subject to prior authorization in very specific and limited sectors. In this sense, the legal origin and basis for this reform can be found on the EU investment regulation of March last year, 2019, which establishes a framework for the screening of investment and also the exchange of information among member states that may affect security and public order. The new regulation in Spain not only anticipates the application of this European regulation, but also provides specific detail on the critical sectors where authorization is required from investors. But in any case, our policy regarding foreign investment is that we are an open country, where any greenfield or brownfield investments are always welcome, and where foreign investors are granted the same conditions than the national investors. In recent years, Spain is proving to be very attractive to international investors, and since 2010, Spain has undoubtedly experienced an excellent decade in terms of foreign direct investments. So of the 10 years in which Spain has received the highest FDI in its history, 7 of them are from this last decade. And this decade has been extraordinary not only for the volume of FDI received, but only because of the quality of the projects that we have received. Even last year, when investment flows were reduced worldwide and also in Spain, according to FDI markets, our country was the 6th largest recipient of greenfield projects in the world, with 837 projects. And this statistic is very important because direct investment has a different impact on the receiving economy depending on the type of FDI in question. So greenfield projects imply new wealth and employment in the country, also innovative investment. So in this type of more productive operations, Spain maintains a notable attraction for foreign investors, which is a very important element for us. Furthermore, according to the same database, in 2019, Spain was the sixth largest recipient of greenfield projects in innovative activities and high technological content after the United States, the United Kingdom, India, Germany, and China. We refer to research and development activities, establishment of corporate headquarters, and ICTs, and internet infrastructures. The establishment of this type of projects in Spain is fundamental for the productivity and competitiveness of the whole economy. It is very difficult to predict the impact of the current health crisis on the foreign direct investment. What we know is that the UNCTAD, which is the usual international statistical source on this subject, forecasts that the volume of FDI worldwide will fall probably by around 40% between 2020 and 2021, which is an unprecedented fall. And this means that many foreign direct investment projects in all corners of the globe will come to a standstill, will be maybe paralyzed or postponed. But in the medium term, most of them will be taken up again. We are optimistic in that sense. So a multinational company, as you know, better than anyone else, can spend several years planning, studying, considering, and thinking about the feasibility of international direct investment and investment decision. That broad time frame is why direct investment decisions are not as conditioned or directly conditioned by very specific or conjunctural circumstances. So the one that we are experiencing now, the COVID-19, is a very temporary situation, and we think that it won't condition this the huge decisions on foreign direct investment that have been analyzed for the last year. So the portfolio investments or export decisions have a greater capacity to adapt to economic circumstances and can become real in relatively short periods of time. So direct investment decisions have a long-term perspectives and follow more stable patterns, and we are confident that in the medium term or long term, new foreign investment projects in Spain will not be decisively conditioned by the current epidemic. The Spanish market has numerous structural strengths that make it a very attractive destination for international investors. That has not changed because of the pandemic. Foreign companies find in the first place Spain as an attractive domestic market with 47 million potential consumers. So this is a vast, a large market. Collaboration with local suppliers is also the key to the success of foreign companies investing abroad. Multinationals investing in Spain find a highly developed local business network. Spanish companies are leader in a large number of markets and sectors worldwide. There are a growing number of clusters also in the most diverse sectors throughout Spain, in which foreign companies can find the suppliers necessary for the success of their investment projects. And today, moreover, Spain is perceived as a destination for high value-added investments and also a platform for to invest, platform to make businesses from Spain to the rest of the European Union, but also to Latin America or the north of Africa. This is possible, among other factors, because companies established in Spain are guaranteed favorable access to all international markets and to all places of the national territory, thanks to the network of infrastructures available. And according to the World Economic Forum's Global Competitiveness Report, Spain is the 7th country in the world with the best transport infrastructure at a global level. Something that we love to say every time we have the chance to do this kind of a speech. These are other factors, these and many other factors are highly valued by foreign companies established in Spain. And that's why every year the executive management of Invest in Spain, of the ICEX, publishes together with the multinationals of brand Spain, Multinacionales Marca España, the barometer of the business climate in Spain from the perspective of the foreign investor. In the last edition, the items that investors rated most positively were critical areas in a country's business climate, like the market size, human capital, which is very important and very positively valued by foreign direct investors in Spain, infrastructures, of course, and quality of life. And each of them, the strength shown by Spain is a key element of competitiveness. So this is the reality that foreign multinationals find in Spain. That is what they report to their parent companies. And all these factors, as I said before, are structural strengths of our business climate. They were there before the COVID-19. They are here in Spain now, and they will be here after the recovery, consolidating Spain once again as one of the most attractive countries in the world for foreign direct investment. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Secretary of State, for your thoughtful explanation. I would like to remind everyone that all participating investors can type in your questions for the Secretary of State via our chat feature, which is on the right-hand side of your screen, or via email. But first, we will start our live Q&A with some questions from our sponsors. So the first question comes from Frederic Pretet, Chief Economist of Exane BNP Paribas. Hello, Frederic. Welcome. I think your mic is closed. Please open the microphone. Thanks.
Buenas tardes. Thank you very much for your presentation. You mentioned that Spanish economy, of course, suffer a lot this year, especially because the economy is very focused on very sensitive to tourism, to transport, to car and trade. I would like to come back on these specific sectors and all the announcements you mentioned. First of all, regarding the tourism industry, you mentioned that there will be some financial support around 10 billion. You have, I would say, a kind of range estimate or what could be the loss in the tourist sectors for this year. I know that it's very early in the season, so figures could change. But compared to the 9% drop we had for you announced for the Spanish economy, what could be the loss for the tourism sectors? And therefore, these 10 billion, do you think that there will be maybe or the possibility to increase this financial aid if it's still is in the pipeline or not? And the second question will be more on what you announced in terms of recovery, the phase 2 of the process and the support for especially the automotive sectors. It's true that these sectors is also facing beyond the COVID crisis structural changes. Very important one because of the transition, the climate, and things like this. What could be the size of the fiscal package to these sectors? Because you know that France, Germany already announced some fiscal package in terms of size. So what could be the figures you could have in mind? And beyond this, for the global corporates in Spain, I remember that in January, a number of investors were a bit worried regarding a question regarding coming back on some the labor reforms, the past labor reforms, maybe the possibility that tax for corporates could be increased. It was another word, of course, but if you can tell us a little bit regarding where do we stand about corporate taxes in the years to come, and the labor reform, where do we stand? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frederic. Well, it is quite difficult from now to forecast the drop in tourism. We have to take into account the impact of the drop in national tourism and international one. Well, the mobility has not been recovered yet. So the borders have been open now for only 14 days. With some countries, as you know, with very specific security protocols, but it's still closed for other origin markets of tourism that are very important to us. We have also to take into account that this is a very seasonal sector in Spain. So, well, the period from May to October accounts for the vast majority of the tourists we receive every year. We receive 83 million tourists, international tourists, every year. So as you can imagine, the impact on the tourism sector will be huge, but it is very difficult for us to have an estimate, as we don't know exactly what will happen after September. So and we hope for the better. So this first package, released only 2 weeks ago, have some measures to help, for example, in order to tackle some liquidity problems for businesses in that sector, such as the moratoria for the mortgage payment and some of the financial charges and problems that the firms in the sectors have to deal with. And apart from that, also some help for the demand, but very limited one. But I want to emphasize the importance of the liquidity and solvency packages already approved by the government, as I think that the tourism sector, being the most affected, probably the most affected one, is also the most benefited one from this sector. So as I said, the businesses in the tourism sector have asked and requested a lot of financing from this liquidity line approved and managed by ICO. This is good news, of course, and we have now this new package for solvency problems, and I'm sure that the businesses and the companies in the tourism sector will ask for this help, and will have access, of course, to all these aids. So let's see what happens with what is already approved. And apart from that, I think that another factor that is key in this case in the tourism sector is confidence and trust and security. So we have to work for the promotion of Spain and the image and the perception of Spain as a safe destination. I think that is the key to reactivate the sector in the medium term. So we'll put the resources, and from the Secretary of State for Tourism, from this ministry, that's what they are working on now. Really, is promoting Spain as a safe destination abroad, and that will be really important. Regarding the corporate taxation, well, as you know, we are now working. In fact, from today on the new budget perspective for 2021. So that's something that we will have to analyze carefully. Not only the expenses, but also the design and the taxation that will accompany the expenses. So we'll see what happens. But of course, from this Secretary of State for Trade, we will be very careful in analyzing the impact on the attraction of foreign direct investments, as you can expect. As for the labor market, you said you asked about the reforms in the labor market. We will have to. There has been some controversy about the importance of the reform, whether it will be a total reform or a partial one. So what we know is that we have to provide for a flexible labor market. That's for sure, in order to tackle better with the impact of the COVID-19 on the employment, and any reform undertaken in that sense in the labor market will have to take into account that goal, or the flexibility of the capacity of the firms to adapt to the new situation, and to create the conditions for less harmful impact on the employment.
And regarding the automotive sector,
oh yeah,
the financial package, you have a size or?
Well, there's a size. We have some very different plans that will be developed over the next years. It's not only the second semester, but also the next year, and so we will have to manage very specific funds for the demand, for the aids to the demand, for the sales of new models of not only electric but new models of cars, and to renew the car to renew the car market through the Renove, for example, that will be launched these weeks. And also we are working, and that is something that I think is key for the future of the sector in Spain. We have to deal with two very important challenges, which is sustainability and digitalization. And though these two challenges are very important for every sector in the Spanish economy, they are especially important for regarding the car industry. So together with Invest in Spain from ICEX, and with the Secretary General for Industry and regarding the car industry, we are also creating the conditions for attracting foreign direct investment in the electric models, greenfield projects, which are really important to guarantee this competitiveness of the car industry in Spain, and to set the industry and to prepare it for the future.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. We now turn to José Abascal, who is head of ALMT at BNP Paribas Spain. Welcome, José.
Hi, hello, many thanks, and good evening to everybody. My question is regarding something that's going to happen this next weekend. This next weekend, there will be a European Union summit to decide about the European COVID Recovery Fund. Now, as you know, this will be a lot of money. We're talking that we're expecting in the bank that we may reach 650 billion of money that will be reimbursed by the European states. And this will be a huge inflow of money. We expect that for Spain it could be a net of 4% of GDP. You know, that will be disbursed during the next several years. This has huge impact, economic on one side, and also political. If we invest, as you said, that we are the 7th country with the best transport infrastructure in the world, if we still invest this money in building more roads or building more high-speed trains, some people in the north may think that we are wasting their money, or that it's what even if it's not true, but that is their feeling, and they may hurt the European project. So my question is, under your opinion, what should be the government priorities to spend this money, and what kind of criteria you will have in order to invest this money or give grants to companies or wherever, so that this money is well spent, both on political and economic perspective.
Thank you, Jose. Yes, in fact, we are already working. We are considering around 73,000 million euros coming from the Next Generation EU plus the React EU. So now we are working in this national program for investment projects, and the main lines of action that will entail the funds, but also the necessary reforms on the other side, that is the condition, will gravitate around digitalization, of course, also sustainability, so the Green Deal of the European Union. I think that also an effort has to be made on inclusion, social inclusion, also what has to do with human capital and education, and of course internationalization, together with industry. So these are the the four main pillars, and every project that we will have to work on, we will have to do with these four pillars.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on social inclusion that you have said that might be one of the pillars of the decision process?
Yeah, well, that has to do with the resilience of the security network that we have in Spain. So we have to deal with the future of the social security network and provide for a resilient and more durable and stable framework on that. That have to do with social inclusion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now is the turn for José María Romero, who is Associate Principal at Equipo Económico. Welcome, José María.
Thank you, Aida. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, the organizers and the Secretary of State for Trade, for sharing her ideas with us today. You mentioned that the UNTAD forecasts a 40% decrease in investment flows. So we know countries will be competing very intensively to attract these investments in order to help the recovery of each one of the economies. So I was wondering what the Spanish government has in mind for the collaboration between the public and the private sector, because I think it's worth to remember that some of this very good infrastructure has been financed and built by some of the, also thanks to the investments of many people abroad Spain. This will be my first question. My second question is that if you could elaborate a little bit more about the short-term package to support the trade sector. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, José María. Well, regarding the first question and the public-private collaboration in strategic sector and especially infrastructure sector, transport sectors, concession, well, this should be better addressed by the transport ministry, not me, but anyway, I would like to highlight that this public-private agenda is very important for us, for the Secretary of State for Trade, because we've always been working very close with the private sector. So we know the requirements and the necessities of the companies, whether they are deciding on exporting or deciding on coming to Spain to invest. And we've been in touch also every day with the representatives of the economic and trade sectors and civil society during the pandemic. That's why we are now reviewing the plan for the internationalization of the economy, because we are well aware of the new necessities and the short-term necessities. So now we are aware that we have to adapt the plan 2019-2020 to the new scenario. So that has to do with the second question, because as you know, we have a long-term strategy for internationalization, which is a 10-year strategy for internationalization, and every 2 years we have to adapt this framework. And now we are working onto different ways. The first one is this short-term package that I will tell you about now, and then the other, we are preparing the new action plan for 2020-2021. 2021-2022. with also adapting to the new scenario. What we want to do with the short-term action plan that we will release in the forthcoming weeks is to mitigate the immediate effect of the COVID-19. So, in other words, to go back to February, I have to remind that last year, which we had a moderate growth of the exports, finished with a dynamic external sector in November, December, and the beginning of this year, January and February, were very positive months for the exports in Spain. So we would like to go back to that. We will also like to mitigate the impact of the protectionist measures that we are seeing in other countries. We are seeing abroad, and to mitigate also the impact of that protectionist measures that we are suffering. Also, we want to enhance the multilateral trade system and to boost and to support the immediate reform of the WTO, and to boost and to facilitate some of the negotiations, multilateral negotiations that were being undertaken by the WTO. We are going to release and approve some financing measures for covering export operations, for covering investments of the Spanish companies abroad. We also are going to approve new financing lines for projects that have to do with sustainability and with the Agenda 2030, specifically regarding renewable energy and waste management, and also water supply and water treatment abroad. We are going to approve more agile procedures for the improvement of these operations. And regarding that is for the short term, that is for the second semester of this year. So this will be in place very in the next weeks. But regarding the action plan for the next year, for 2021 and 2022, we also want to adapt the 10-year strategy and to deal with some lessons learned from the pandemic. The most important one, for example, will be the coherence between industrial policy and trade policy. We have to make sure that what we are investing in the industrial sector in Spain has also the potential to grow abroad. So has the potential to get not only national but also international competitiveness. I think that is key, to have a higher profitability of what we are investing, and also from what we are getting from the European Union, that we are going to invest on a, for example, competitive car industry that is going to have a grow also abroad, that is going to be able to export and to be a reference also worldwide. So that coherence between the industrial policy and the trade policy has to be made sure on this action plan. Another important lesson is the resilience of the global value chains. And as you know, Spain is very well positioned in the global value chains, even a little bit better than the average of the other member states in the European Union. That is very positive, that is very good. But at the same time, when the global value chains are disrupted, we have a direct impact too. So we have to make sure that we are well positioned, and that means that we are in the highest value added places of the chain, where there is research and development investment, and where there is human capital and so on. So that will make us more resilient. That will make us get the benefits from being in the global value chains, but also will make us more prepared and ready to face future catastrophes or pandemics that will probably come. So we will have to include some measures regarding, for example, logistic sectors, new access to different markets, diversification of markets, suppliers, all that has to do with resiliency in the global value chains.
Thank you so much. And this coherence you are talking about is definitely very well welcoming in the industry policy, trade policy, and the whole economic policy we all wish. Thank you.
Thank you both. And now the last question from our sponsor will come from Carlos Fernandez, who is Chief Economist at Grant Thornton. Welcome, Carlos.
Welcome. Thank you, Aida. Thanks a lot for organizing this event. I want to say good afternoon for everybody, for the attendance and my colleagues here, and also congratulate the Secretary of State for this. I think it was a great explanation of the state of the situation in Spain and what are the plans from the government and from the Secretary of State. So I think you touched some of the points I want to ask you. So maybe there are some things you can just skip in your answer. But I think Spain is expected to make a significant investment effort in the modernization of production, and you touched those points in your intervention. I think also Jose talked about this in his last question. And you know, areas and technologies like digitalization, green energy, human capital, the electric cars, you touched at that specific point, and so on, were signaled by the European Union and also by the government as key areas for investment. I mean, I'm talking about the last years, not only these last months. So you offer us some insights regarding the government and the Secretary of State plans for the key industries, automotive, tourism, that's key. But I would like to ask you, in your capacity, in your role as president of the ICEX, of the Institute of External Commerce, what else could the ICEX do to improve the promotion and dissemination of the great potential of Spain in the global context? I know you were answering this question before, in the last question from Jose, but I would like you to expand it a little bit more if you wish.
Well, thank you very much for the question, as I think that is one of the main lines of action and activities carried out by ICEX, and specifically by Invest in Spain, which is one of the divisions of ICEX. We work very closely with potential foreign investors. We are the single window for them to make any kind of questions and also requirements regarding the climate business. I think that is something that we have to offer, and we are well positioned in order to listen to the requirements and then talk to every level of the public administration in Spain, which is very important, because anyone can imagine that we try to attract foreign direct investment in Madrid or in Barcelona, but in fact we are present in all the territory. And so whenever a foreign direct investor comes with an interesting project, we also want to make sure that the conditions that we offer are not the most maybe the first one that we can imagine, or the easiest ones to find, but also the best one in the whole territory. And I have to say that the collaboration from the autonomías, the regions, is excellent. Especially in the last times, they are offering us a lot of information. They are being very collaborative and providing us with excellent conditions to attract the foreign direct investment. They are working a lot with us, and that is very important. It's a very fruitful relations. Now we are working on on the strategic sectors. On attracting foreign direct investment to strategic sectors in which Spanish companies have achieved a leading international position over time. And I referred before to that, but also those sectors where the clusters already exist in Spain. That has also to do with that coherence between the industrial policy and the trade policy, as we have a lot to offer in Spain. We have the conditions, and that's why Spain outstands as a destination for foreign direct investment. So regarding the investments already made in strategic sectors, we have to try to put that in, to leverage or to prepare specific actions to attract foreign direct investment where the clusters already exist, where the infrastructures already exist, and the logistics sector is already working very well. So for example, investment in Spain organizes or partner with the private sector in the organization of nearly 400 promotion activities every year in Spain's competitive advantages. And that is what we try to do with the organization of this activity, to explain and show the reasons why Spain outstands as a destination for foreign direct investment in those strategic sectors.
Thanks a lot for your answer.
Thank you very much again to our sponsors for their questions. Ms. Méndez, I will now proceed to ask you some of the questions that participating investors have sent during your speech. So the first question is, Spain is highly dependent on foreign financing. Do you think that foreign investors' confidence will be affected by the impact of the coming crisis?
Well, I don't think that would be the case. I think that basically the investment decisions worldwide will be paralyzed or postponed maybe for a while, but that won't affect Spain specifically. As I said before, the reasons for the competitiveness are structural and are still here. So as I said before, I think that some investment decisions are take a long time to materialize. So they are not subject or impacted by conjunctural situation, won't be impacted by the very temporary impact of the COVID-19. So I think that now that we are reopening the economy and the borders, we will see how the foreign direct the foreign investors will come to Spain and continue analyzing important projects. In fact, I have to say, because I worked directly with Invest in Spain, that currently we have very important and huge investment projects for Spain that are being analyzed and elaborated right now for the coming months.
Another participant says the internationalization of Spanish companies was one of the factors that helped to overcome the previous crisis. Do you think it will also happen this time?
Yeah, thank you. I love that question. That's my belief, of course. Yeah, the external sector was the locomotive of the recovery, especially the first years after 2008. That came like a necessity for the Spanish companies. They didn't find the national demand, so they have to look abroad. They have to discover new markets, and they have to access to new markets worldwide, to consolidate the position, for example, in Latin America, but also to bet for further markets like in Asia that we haven't been before. But so I'm sure that in this case, and especially as mobility, international mobility recovers, we will see how exports and also, well, internationalization, you know, will be also the locomotive for the economy. But we have an advantage now. We have a different situation, a different starting point, because now the external sector is much more competitive than it was before in 2008. Now we have the human resources, the capacities and the abilities for the internationalization of the companies. We also have a huge base of regular exporters, for example. This means more than 53,000 regular exporters last year, which is a record figure. Also, record figure on exporters in all. We are very well positioned in the global value chains, and as I said before, so and we are present in many markets. We continue to be quite focused on the European, so the single market, the European Union market. On 65% of our exports go there. But we are also looking for new markets, for example, in Africa, and of course, increasing our participation and presence in Asia and in the United States and in Canada. So that is something that we didn't have in 2008 in the last economic crisis, and so the starting point is much better now. And our companies have been proved abroad how competitive they are and how well prepared they are to undertake emblematic and huge projects, infrastructure, energy, TIC, information technologies projects abroad. And so the situation is better than it was.
Well, I think that we have to go now. We promised to be here 1 hour with you, and I think we've managed to get the whole of the time. So thank you, Secretary of State, on behalf of Estudio de Comunicación and Exane BNP Paribas, for being here with us today. And of course, thank you all for attending this webinar organized by Spain Investors Day. Stay safe.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.